all the disturbing allegations against Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, the WWE when it comes to, with sex trafficking, sexual assault, there's still more and more very disturbing stories, accusations that have been coming out. And there's been stuff relating to the former WWE talent, Ashley Massaro. This was a story, though, isn't you? This story that on a 2006 tour, and they were in Kuwait at a naval base. The accusation was that a U.S. Army doctor had sexually assaulted Ashley Massaro, and this is something that the WWE, the higher management, and Vince McMahon decided that they were going to cover this up. It would be the best interest in the company if this story didn't get out, being that with the relationship that they have with the U.S. Army and with all the stuff they do, tribute to the troop shows every year, they wanted to keep this quiet. And it came out later. The attorney of John Laurinaitis had said that with this, in regards to whether he was part of a cover-up, his attorney said any allegations that Mr. Laurinaitis helped to cover up an alleged RAPE allegation is an outright lie. Johnny, like most upper-level management, at some time became aware of the allegations and ensured all proper WWE protocols were followed, including privacy for the alleged victim. We object to the use of the term cover-up, as no such plan or plot ever took place to hide or assist in the alleged RAPE. There's a couple of things. I mean, some of the things about, the wording of this, like most upper-level management. Well, you think all upper-level management would have known about this, surely, right? And they want to make it seem like, it was to do with the privacy of the victim. Not like, hey, let's get this piece of shit exposed. He sexually assaulted another woman, the doctor. So it's very smart, the wording of this, but then lawyers are obviously going to be experts at doing that. But then again, this idea that John Laurinaitis, I mean, let's tell like it is. They covered it up. It was a cover up, and the fact that at that time he was vice president of talent relations, John Laurinaitis. So he's the guy that any time that a WWE talent has a big problem, an issue, they are always going to go to John Laurinaitis. So he would have known about it, and I think he's cut from the same cloth as like a McMahon that they and others in there, that they would have wanted that to be quiet and to cover it up. But what's quite disturbing also is that they're saying now that Stephanie McMahon, she knew about it. A friend of hers, Cara Pipia, and states here she felt threatened by the board to keep quiet about this, and it's very, very horrific what happened to Ashley Massaro. What happened in 2019? She committed suicide. I was friends with Ashley Massaro on Facebook. Friends with a couple of her ex-talent. There's Ken Doe and Armando Estrada. I could have tried to go fishing and connecting with former friends of hers to talk on a video or something, but that's not something I want to resort to doing. But with this, Cara Pipia, she spoke to Use Nation about this, so I want to play this clip here, and at the end of it, I'll react to this. So here we go.
How did she get back?
She was, they got her flight days after everyone was already home. She was left alone because they had to go back to work. Vince wanted them back in the USA because they had work to do.
It's unbelievable. She said to you that she told the WWE.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Specifically, who did she tell?
Well, the gentleman who wrapped her in the blanket, he was an executive for the company. So
I believe she told the doctor first, the WWE doctor.
You have an executive. As soon as she got back to the States, I mean, she had the phone calls while she was in Kuwait. I mean, it was out from the beginning, right after it happened. As soon as she was able to talk on the phone and get
did it go right to
Vince McMahon? Right to the top.
She spoke with Vince McMahon.
She spoke with Vince McMahon many times. Vince had his daughter,
Stephanie McMahon,
take his place.
Just happens to be next
to
her.
Female, a woman, and to make Ashley comfortable, and they just played with her. They play with her because everything that Stephanie had made her feel comfortable and safe about, as soon as they walked into this boardroom meeting, Ashley was on her own completely. And she was threatened, and there was no compassion, there was no sympathy, there was nothing.
So Ashley Massaro, your best friend, told you that she went into a boardroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the WWE, where Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon, and other executives were seated.
The entire, yes.
And that's where she was told, this has to stay under wraps.
That is right. And she had, right before she walked into that boardroom, she talked to the locker room doctor, who was aware of everything, and he was actually very sympathetic to her, but he had no pull. So he gave her the advice that he could, and but that was it.
You heard me reading the statement from the WWE earlier, which is effectively, at no time did we hear anything about these allegations about a doctor, a nurse, an assault in Kuwait. We knew nothing about this. And then after the Janelle Grant lawsuit, one of the men who's named as an abuser of Janelle Grant is John Laurinaitis, another executive at WWE. Right. And his lawyer is acknowledging that John Laurinaitis did know. I mean, when you heard that, it's been years since Ashley took her life. When you heard John Laurinaitis' lawyer acknowledge that Ashley had told them, that the WWE was not telling the truth, what was your reaction?
Caught in a lie.
It's about time somebody has a conscience, because there was never a single moment of time that I didn't believe a word that Ashley told me. So
if you had an opportunity to say something to Vince McMahon, what would it be?
Well, that's the question I hadn't thought about. Shame on you. Like, how do you look at yourself? How do you look at the mirror? I mean, obviously he's got problems, you know. He's a sexual deviant, you know. He needs help. He's not well. So the problem is that people with that kind of sickness and mindset and power, why do they thrive for so long? Why doesn't anybody stand up? Why are there so many people in that company aware of what's going on to hold these women who keep committing suicide year after year after year, and nobody stands up and says anything? No one tries to protect these young women. Why? Because it's not just Vince, it's the whole freaking company.
Do you think that what happened to Ashley, as she recounted to you,
things eventually changing a bit now?
99%, absolutely.
Kara, Papia, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time and having the courage. I know this has taken a long time for you to muster the courage and the energy and the emotion to be able to tell this story. So I just do want to tell you, I appreciate.
So there you go. I mean, WWE claimed they didn't know about this, but then you got John Laurinaitis through his attorney saying that they did know, but then he's just trying to say, well, it wasn't a cover up. But if that isn't a cover up, then what the hell it is? It's just good grief. I mean, what this poor woman went through, it's just something else. I mean, it's horrific. I mean, the whole thing about worrying about the relationship you'd have with the U.S. Army, but the thing is, you should make it. They should make that abundantly clear, as should the Army, that what this incident is, one incident. This doesn't represent the Army here, of the United States of America. In any line of work, anything, there could always be bad apples that slip their way in. But they were more concerned because it's the Army, and God forbid this stuff comes out about the Army, right? And but there's way worse things. Well, I'm not saying way worse things, but I mean, there's other stuff that must go on in the Army about when it comes to people and harassment and sexual assault, or I'm sure bullying could be very common. But there's a lot of things that go on there, and I guess that kind of gets covered up because we can't be doing anything that could have the Army in a bad light, especially the American Army. But she went through hell. But it's not just the stuff. I mean, there's other stuff as well with Ashley Massaro. The stuff that was coming out, again, very disturbing that with the WWE, you know, as soon as Ashley Massaro, she won the Diva Search, and the contract stated that she would be like a spokesmodel type person. In the contract, it didn't state, it wasn't like it was stated as like a wrestling contract, right, for the Diva Search. But then, though, what happened was she wins the Diva Search, and then within, I think, of a week or two of winning Diva Search, she's wrestling. She's in matches. She's on Raw. I believe around that time she was on a pay-per-view match. I think she tagged with Trish Stratus, who had just returned. And again, it's one of those things, you know, it must have been quite misleading, the contract, but then it's one thing with this because, you know, that was the second Diva Search. The first Diva Search was Christy Hemme won that. But then Christy Hemme she was wrestling. I don't believe she wrestled before that. I don't think so. But she was wrestling not that long after that. I mean, there might have been, you know, silly ass pillow fight type matches with that girl Carmella or whatever, not maybe type of things where she's potentially getting real, you know, hurt, taking bad bumps, stiff shots, but you know, she was led to believe that this would be a spokesmodel contract, but then she found out, you know, no, they want her on the road, they want her competing, they want her to be in the ring wrestling, but she wasn't properly trained for that, and she wanted training. She wanted to go down to OVW, the developmental territory, but Stephanie McMahon said to her that you can't do that because then, you know, you go off the road, you're in developmental, that's going to affect with, you know, your fan base. And I get that point, but then the thing is, you don't just go and have her wrestle in matches when she's not received the adequate training. It's like, what the hell is going on there? And they decided to do that, and that's very messed up if this is true, because, you know, we heard a lot of good things around that time about 2003-04 about the women's division, how it's improved. You know, Finlay was known as one of the guy working with the girls in their matches and producing and stuff like that. So what was Finlay not training her? What was going on there if she wasn't receiving adequate training? And then she was getting very bad injuries, something about bad injury or leg or ankle, something else where she was still injured, but they had her go out in a silly thing where she was tied up by Mickie James, but what happened was she was in a chair tied up. Trish Stratus goes out to attack Mickie James. I can vaguely remember this, but then she accidentally fell on Ashley, which caused her to be further injured. But some of this stuff, and McMahon seemed to not care, that he just wanted to get her cast sawed off an arm and go out to the ring. And again, it was a different culture back then, but it's been different culture in wrestling for years where you work through injuries, you work hurt. But to me, though, you've got to be, if you're working hurt, my understanding, and I'm not like I'm in the business, but my understanding of that, though, working hurt, you've got to be quite experienced as a wrestler to work hurt. And you're probably talking like you're like, I don't know, 6-7 years in the business until you really be working hurt consistently, is my understanding. But they had her do that, trying to work through all these injuries. But then I think she says stuff about one veteran was specifically stiff with her, which could be common. That's how things go. It can maybe still go kind of that way in the business. But she had gone through hell, and it just seemed like there was no one in there really in a position of power that had her back on any of this. There's all the stuff there. There's all stuff with Vince McMahon, that Vince McMahon was harassing her, and that he was hounding her all the time to go on the jet with himself, and Kevin Dunn was doing the same thing. When they were at the hotel, he was constantly phoning her, was Vince McMahon. Paul London, who dated Ashley Massaro at one point, former talent Paul London, was saying this stuff about they were dating at the time, and she was going to him crying and shaking. She had joined a class action lawsuit against WWE. And with this, you know, alleging that the company concealed a risk of injury that caused them neurological damage. And then there's the stuff there with, you know, the doctor in Kuwait. This lawsuit was dismissed in late 2018, because I think that would have been if it hadn't been dismissed and they went on and won it, and there were so many people representing, and I think the main man behind it, funnily enough, that was like the main spokesperson for all these ex people in WWE talent that were suing the company. It was the guy. I believe his real name's Joe Laurinaitis, and was Road Warrior Animal, the brother of John Laurinaitis. Crazy, people forget. Like you wouldn't think those guys are brothers, but he was the main guy, leading this lawsuit against the company WWE that his brother, is high up. Whatever it was, vice president talent relations. Although I think he was like an agent at that time. But the lawsuit was dismissed. It says here though that WWE had received an email from Massaro in October 2018, which she expressed regret for having taken part in the lawsuit. Now, that's one thing. Certain things about this with the whole thing with Ashley Massaro, because it came out that Ashley Massaro said to her attorney that she wished she had never worked for WWE. That's one thing she had said to her attorney. But then there was something, though, that was quite sad. It was maybe around 2017, 2018 time. I think it was something like a special episode of Raw. I don't know if it was an anniversary show or what. But she was tricked by a fake Stephanie McMahon account that said that we'd like to invite you to this episode of Raw. She said, "Oh yes, Stephanie, I'd love that. Thank you so much." She was tricked by a fake account. And with this, when you say it and you hear this, you see this stuff about the email that she expressed regret for taking part, you might say, well, if she had felt this way about the company, about how badly it was, of the incident there with the doctor, how they ignored her when the problems that she had with injuries and how she wanted training, you would maybe say, well, why did she want to go back there? All right. But one thing I would say to that is that, when you're in that position like her, and she had a bit of start, she had a bit of a name, she had fame, and the money would have been pretty good. That's addictive. That is like an addiction. And the thing is, when you're out in the ring, you're performing, you hear it all the time from wrestlers when it's the roar of the crowd, the feedback you get. That is like a drug. So that's probably the thing that she missed. She missed the spotlight. She missed the adulation from the fans. I don't think it was the thing of, she missed the atmosphere, that toxic environment, what it is, how political it's there at WWE. That's what I would say to that anyway. But she had been through hell, and it's just terrible now. But all this stuff is now coming to light with Ashley Massaro. But when people were speaking about this years ago, though, the whole story about the thing, what happened in Kuwait, was out years ago. But it is very disturbing, though, that Stephanie frickin' McMahon, who makes out that she was all for the Divas Revolution, the Women's Revolution, whatever that they call it, and having the women featured better in a better light, not doing all this silliness with whatever it was they were doing before, and being taken seriously as competitors. But again, she was the one, but in that slick, good cop type way. She was the one to talk Ashley Massaro out. You know what I mean? They had to tell. They were the one that had it in her ear that, hey, we've got to cover this up. We've got to keep quiet about this because we don't want to be messing up the relationship that we have with the U.S. Army. So that's just terrible. It's like, shame on Stephanie McMahon, shame on John Laurinaitis, shame on anybody else in the WWE that played a part and they thought it was good to cover it up. They probably all had the same mindset. Maybe one or two people there was like, no, that's bullshit. This needs to get out there, what he did. He can't get away with this, the doctor. But anybody that did want to cover that up, I mean, if they're still in WWE, they should be gone. Stephanie McMahon should never be back in WWE as far as I'm concerned. And to be honest, the husband's just as bad. They're just as conniving and just as calculated. And, if he's gone from WWE, I'd be quite happy if he's gone from WWE. I think the company, honestly, would be a better place. It'd be a better place without those toxic people in the company. But that's my thoughts on that, guys, with all this stuff. Feel free to leave a comment, hit the subscribe button. But yeah, leave a comment and let me know what your thoughts are on all this stuff. Just all this. It's just so horrific, this stuff with Ashley Massaro. But that's me for now, guys. Thanks a lot. Cheers.